Greetings, citizens, and thanks for tuning in to Nindie Nation episode 178. I'm Jeff, and today we're checking out the best indie games coming to the Nintendo eShop this week. Head on down to the comments and tell me which games are jiving your turkey, and if there's something we should add to this Thursday's Nindies Nite stream. Now, I'm feeling lucky because we've got Pi Day, the Ides of March, St. Patrick's Day, and a bunch of great new games all in 1 week. So hit that like button, subscribe if you're new here, and let's find out if there's a Nindie at the end of this rainbow. These are the 17 new notable Nindies hitting the Nintendo Switch through Sunday, March 19th. Life of Delta is a point-and-click adventure set in post-apocalypse Japan where you play as an adorable little service robot named Delta. After one of his friends goes missing, Delta sets out on a quest to rescue him. It looks like the first release from Iro Games, who is remotely based across the UK, Slovakia, Vietnam, and Poland, and it is clear that they have some talented artists and a love for sci-fi. You'll spend time talking to characters, exploring the wasteland, and of course, solving a bunch of puzzles with this cute little robot, and it kicks off the week on Monday via Daedalic Entertainment for $19.99. And while I shared on Nindies at Night last week that I'm starting to burn out on Metroidvanias, I must admit that the game I'm most looking forward to this week is Vernal Edge. It's a gorgeous 2D pixel art Metroidvania with a heavy emphasis on stylish, combo-driven hack-and-slash combat. It follows Vernal, a young martial arts expert who must travel across the world of floating islands to find her missing father. And as usual, along the way you'll find all kinds of upgrades that keep the combat fresh and always evolving. It's developed by Hello Penguin Games, a team of 4 based in Florida, and is published by Plug-in Digital, who's really been on a tear with great games recently. I really love this game's style. It blends environments that remind me of Owlboy with tech and gadgets and characters that would feel right at home in Mega Man X or other sci-fi 16-bit games. I'm not sure if I'll be diving right back into yet another Metroidvania, but with the release this Tuesday for $21.99, I just might be convinced otherwise. Frozak Games is a Nindie newcomer, and their first release is a puzzle game called Tents and Trees. Looks a lot like Minesweeper and is all about pitching tents next to trees.
Wow, great work, Jeff. Really stellar job.
I guess if stuff like this pitches your tent, it drops for $9.99. And then The Pixel Hunt, the acclaimed French studio behind Bury Me My Love and Inua, A Story in Ice and Time, is back this week with The Wreck, a stylish, emotional game that plays like a choice-driven visual novel, but offers a bit more than what we usually see from these types of games. Junon is a failed screenwriter who's been just having a real bad time lately, and to make matters worse, she's just found out that her mom is in critical condition at the hospital. As she drives to the hospital to go see her, she gets in an awful car accident because of how distracted she is from all of her other trauma. And that's where you come in. As she drives to the hospital, you'll relive 10 distinct memories involving the people, events, and relationships that led her to this point of hitting the mental rock bottom. Navigating the memories, mostly via dialogue and decision trees, could help her cope with the various events of her life, and as you dive into the psychology of why Junon is feeling the way she is, you can actually help her work out her feelings, potentially avoiding the titular wreck. I'm pretty confident that this one's going to resonate with its intended audience, given the team's past work, and I'll certainly be watching reviews for it when it releases for $19.99. Finally on Tuesday, we see the re-release of a classic 90s PC game in Terminal Velocity Boosted Edition by Ziggurat for $11.99. I am totally clouded by nostalgia here because I used to love this big, open-ended, 360-degree flight combat game. It took ideas from games like Descent and put you in a much larger space where you could freely fly around between objectives, and I just remember loving the sense of speed. It's probably only going to be a fit for those of you who also enjoyed the original, but with updated visuals, an HD heads-up display, and new widescreen support, it's a great way to relive an often forgotten PC classic. On Wednesday, the Ides of March, the eShop hits the ground running with Post Void, which is self-described as
a hypnotic scramble of early first-person shooter design that values speed above all else. An incredibly fast-paced, surreal headache of an FPS where the only way to live is to keep killing to stop your health from running out.
Pretty wild, huh? When it released on other platforms back in 2020, it was met with overwhelming praise, as long as you know what you're getting into, with the primary criticism of the game being that it's only a couple hours long. It helps that the team at YCJY Games put a bit of randomization into it, as the upgrades that you receive at the end of each level can change quite a bit about how the next stage will play out. But for the most part, what you see is what you get. A fast, retro-inspired, non-stop murder fest that's sure to delight fans of the first-person shooter craze of the 90s. Even though it's a bit on the short side, it launches with a super reasonable price by Super Rare Games for just $5.99. Man, they're also on a tear recently, aren't they? We've got a quick 1-2 punch of crazy anime games for you, the first of which is Alice Gear Aegis CS Concerto of Simulatrix.
The did I just say?
When you're not staring at cheery anime girls, you're equipping all kinds of mech armor and then having them all battle it out in an arena. The combat does look pretty fun, as you can fly around, shoot from far away, or duke it out up close, but the combination of a $30 price tag and a trailer that made my ears and eyes bleed, I'll be sitting this one out. And then the other side of this nonsensical anime insanity apparently follows the story of the Osflug's journey through the 6-star cluster, which I'm guessing is not a scientific explanation of constipation, but what do I know? 6-Star Gate
Star Trail
is a $25 rhythm game that looks like a cross between Guitar Hero and Tetris. And it sounds like what you would hear when walking into an arcade during the peak of the Dance Dance Revolution craze. It's developed by Starlike and published by CFK. Loop is a relaxing puzzle game with a great vibe by Team Chili that's all about working with an AI companion to solve riddles in a mysterious temple. It's been well received on PC and mobile, and will only set you back $349, but from what I can see, it looks mostly centered around those types of puzzles that require you to move blocks or angle lights, so make sure that's up your alley before diving in. Backbeat, the word is on the street that the fire in your heart is out. I'm sure you've heard it all before, but it's also the name of one of the most unique puzzle games I've ever seen. I'll do my best to explain it, but be sure to check out the demo that's already available. Built as an homage to 16 and 32-bit story-driven games and set in 90s suburban America, you control a newly formed band as they navigate their lives at school and at home in order to win the Battle of the Bands. It plays as a turn-based strategy game, as you can see by the isometric perspective, but each character moves in a unique way. So, as you work towards the level's objective, you'll move quietly through tight spaces with the bassist, slide past obstacles with the keytar player,
And I mean, come on, who can say no to a game with a keytar player?
or break through barriers with the drummer, and so on. Ultimately, your goal is to get your characters from their starting point to a specific predetermined spot on the map, and the way you reach the goal and which characters you use determines the type of song that you create. And while it sounds very complicated, there is a handy rewind feature, and the game is built to be experienced, not punishing. And honestly, with the price being $26 and the concept being so bizarre, I'd usually look the other way. But here's the thing. This is the next game by Ichigo Ichi, the developer of the highly acclaimed Hexagroove DJ series, another music-based game that is extremely hard to explain, but absolutely worth it once you get it. For that reason, as well as the slew of media already made available and a demo already being live, I have a feeling that Backbeat is shaping up to be something pretty special. And speaking of unique games, I guess I'm just gonna have to track down a copy of this one for us to see for ourselves, because Squad 51 vs. the Flying Saucers is also unlike anything I've ever seen. Developed by Feorama Films and LumiArts, this is a side-scrolling shooter, but as you can tell, the visuals are incredibly cool. It uses clips that look like they're from a 1940s black and white movie about aliens invading Earth to set the stage, and even leverages the footage during levels when you take control. It looks so cool, and it comes complete with all of the quirkiness and camp from the dramatic movies of that era. I am immediately skeptical of how it'll play on the Switch, but I also think this could be a case like Trek to Yomi, where the Switch's lower fidelity might actually work in the game's favor. It's published by Whisper Games, who's previously released solid titles like Terrorbane and The Shadow U, and comes with a price tag of $19.99. You know, I have a feeling that this game is going to be all about seeing is believing, so I'll see if I can get a copy to add it to Nindies Nite. What do you all think? Ever seen anything like this? I love it. I mean, I guess you could draw some comparisons to Cuphead, but outside of that, I can't think of anything. But we're not done with the visually unique games yet, so let's keep this train rolling. Or maybe I should say Subway, because Subway Midnight appears to be the first game by Bubby Darkstar and is labeled with a term I've yet to use: Spooky Cute. I guess that's a genre, with other examples including Cozy Grove, Little Nightmares, and Amori, and while I'd not used it myself, I certainly see what it's going for. The 6 to 8 hour journey starts with your character, Lizbeth, strolling down a subway, where your only option is to keep walking forward. Eventually you meet ghosts, missing children, some things that want to talk to you, and some things that want to turn you into a ghost. It's described as a haunted house-style spooky cute walking simulator, so it's a lot more about the experience than, say, the gameplay, and the reviews for PC have been overall positive. Apparently there's a lot of quote-unquote blank canvas storytelling, where meaning is up to interpretation, but it's generally about dealing with trauma, and multiple reviews I read have stated that if you enjoy projecting yourself into stories like this, you're gonna be in for a treat. However, if you're the type of person who wants the deeper meaning made a bit clearer, you might not get as much out of it. Subway Midnight was partially funded and published by Aggro Crab, the studio behind Going Under and the upcoming Another Crab's Treasure, but it seems like the port itself was published by Playism. Do you fall into the camp who can appreciate a story that's a bit more obtuse? Or do you like the idea of a spooky, cute haunted house? If so, Subway Midnight releases on the 16th for $10.99. Acrim Digital is the team all about bringing complex tabletop games into the digital realm, and they've done it over and over again with Charterstone, Steam, Concordia, and the like, and this week they do it again with Unmatched Digital Edition, which drops for $24.99. It's a hero-based asymmetric card battler where every turn has you deciding between a maneuver, attack, or scheme. It seems fairly straightforward with solo or online multiplayer available, and Acrim has a knack for simplifying these games just enough to reach that broader audience on consoles. Thing is though, I'm just not deep enough into this world to be able to offer much more insight, so let me know if any of you take to these digital tabletop games and if this is one that's going on your radar. Whenever I see a serene adventure game that blends puzzle elements with a narrative focus, nowadays I just assume it's coming from Untold Tales. But that's not the case this week with Amber City, which is developed by Irisloft and published by Gamera Games for $8.99. I don't have much to go off of here, but it follows a girl in a white dress who wakes up in a ruined city and has some kind of magical light that can reverse time and then, of course, act as a key to other types of puzzles. The city's got this really cool Art Deco style to it, and though there are only a few reviews currently available, they're all pretty positive. The first of 3 Nindies worth considering on Friday the 17th follows in the footsteps of last week's Zappling Bygone, which we played on Nindies Nite. The Guise is another spooky Metroidvania that, while quite reductive, is probably easiest to describe as a budget Hollow Knight. I mean, just look at it. After an orphan's curiosity leads him to try on a creepy mask, Ogden is transported to a dark, macabre world where he must help save it from some kind of evil while not losing a grip on his humanity. Boy, do I know that feeling. Impressions I've found so far claim that the game is a solid attempt by developer Rasul Mono, but it gets bogged down with repetitive combat and occasional performance issues. That was almost 3 years ago though, so if you happen to be intrigued by this $6 adventure published by Roguelike Games, keep an eye out for reviews. There's a good chance that something's changed. The last 2 games of the week are both on the docket for Nindies Nite, and given its arcadey action, I think we'll be kicking off Thursday's stream with Fur Squadron, a solo-developed Star Fox throwback by Raptor Claw that releases for $6.99. It is a very close correlation to the concept of Star Fox 64, all the way down to your crew, but it takes place, or at least starts, inside of a VR training mission that looks like what you'd see in any generic 80s retro advertisement. That's not to say that it looks bad though. In fact, I really like the way it's implemented here, with the vector graphics lines and the bump mapping on each level's geography. It's a nice style that makes the on-rails action much easier to read. There's only 6 levels, so like any Star Fox game, it's a pretty quick jaunt, but if it is as fun as it looks, that can totally be worth $7. So stop by the stream this Thursday because that is exactly how we'll be kicking off Nindies Nite. Then the second half of the evening will be spent with a game that I have very high hopes for, as Flame Keeper is a roguelike adventure that does a lot of things like Cult of the Lamb, but with a balance that seems much more like what I was hoping Cult of the Lamb would be when it released last summer. So you're a flame, and you have to collect flames to keep an eternal flame lit. That means you adventure into dungeons, fight, gather currency, find more fire for your fire, because you're fire, and then you take it back to your village where you put your fire in the fire's fire. What? The thing is, when you give up the flame to empower the eternal flame, you're also giving up some of your life, so it becomes a risk versus reward mechanic of seeing how far you can go before you perish from not having enough health, or just finishing out the run so you can start fresh. There's even little villagers or followers in your base to tend to, and that's where my previous reference comes in. See, for me personally, I never felt like the combat was very fun in Cult of the Lamb, and with how deep all of the cult management stuff was, I always felt like I was messing something up or just making the wrong decisions. Maybe I was. If Cult of the Lamb was 60% management and 40% dungeon crawling, Flamekeeper reads more like 70% combat and 30% management, because there is far more depth to the way that you can spec out your character for combat, and the driving force for each run is your own life rather than your village's contentment. I am shooting from the hip here though, as I've yet to play it, but I'm looking forward to checking it out, and the timing is perfect because if you like what you see on Thursday night, you can pick it up for yourself when it rounds out the week for $11.99. What are we feeling this week, citizens? If I can stomach another Metroidvania, I love what I'm seeing from Vernal Edge, and I might have to give in to nostalgia to pick up Terminal Velocity. But I'm most interested in Squad 51, Backbeat, Flamekeeper, and Fur Squadron. Let me know down in the comments, and don't forget to join us on Discord if you'd like to continue the Nindie conversation, or follow along in our deals channel to nab some quality indies on the cheap. Of course, I already mentioned what's on tap for Nindies Nite, and while I'm trying to add either Vernal Edge or Squad 51, we're definitely going to be checking out Flamekeeper and Fur Squadron. So mark your calendars and come join us right here on YouTube this Thursday at 10 p.m. Eastern. Finally, after several weeks of hype, this is the last week I'll be telling you to get psyched for Have a Nice Death, because it finally arrives next week, but we've also got a cool fighter called Omen of Sorrow on the way, as well as a unique take on classic fairy tales in the puzzle adventure Storyteller. So there's quite a bit to look forward to. But that's all for next week, citizens, because we're all done for today. Thanks so much for watching, liking, subscribing, and sharing Nindie Nation with others. Until next week, I'm Jeff. This has been Nindie Nation episode 178. And remember, no matter what type of game you're looking for, Nindie Nation will be right here to help you find just the thing to keep your Joy-Cons synced.